So about a week and a half ago, the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders went live. And when they went live, apparently the Switch 2 is selling out everywhere. And this started a second win for the people who are against the boycott of Nintendo, where they pretty much are talking about, oh, the boycott doesn't matter. Oh, see, we knew you all were going to buy it anyways. And I think that this is funny. This is hilarious of a take, because these people, it's like as if these people think that it's just we exist in a vacuum here on the internet. It's like these people believe that there's no children anywhere that don't understand or don't even have the mental capacity yet to understand that, oh, as a community on YouTube, we're mostly standing in solidarity against the Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo themselves, and now Xbox, and pretty soon Sony is going to join in too on bumping up the price of their consoles and their games. They've already been doing this everywhere except America. They've already been doing it everywhere except America. So it's not crazy to believe that they're that they're just gonna skip out on the opportunity to get the PS5 Pro up to almost about $800 before taxes in America. Come on, dog. Come on, they're not gonna miss out on the chance on that. And then to have their first party games sell at $80 too. Come on, bro. They're gonna jump at it. It's just they're waiting, I guess, to see what happens with the actual sales of the Nintendo Switch 2. And if you notice that these companies are kind of essentially waiting, like Xbox jumped once they found out that the pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 sold out, which obviously this gave them the opportunity to test the market to see whether or not a bumping up a price of video games and the consoles, whether or not it was worth it. And of course, with the selling out of the Nintendo Switch 2, they deemed it to be worth it to take the risk to try and bump up the price of their games and their consoles. So the Nintendo Switch 2 effectively has opened the door, I think, to Xbox and PlayStation to go ahead and bump up the prices on everything. And as we wait for PlayStation to make the inevitable announcement that they're also going to be raising prices, this brings us back to the Nintendo Switch 2 in a sense of its pre-orders, and why I think that this discussion, or the fact that we're even having this discussion, is hilarious. Because because it's like people just assume that because the Switch 2 is selling out, this is akin to the Switch 2 pretty much coming out and even breaking a quarter of the sales for the Nintendo Switch, when this is not the case. Each country, so Canada, Mexico, America, Japan, Europe, China, Australia, each of these companies probably only got somewhere around 3 to 5 million Nintendo Switches to sell. And then when it comes to your local area, depending on how big it is, this is also accounted for from this huge number. This means that your local store probably only has about 40 to probably at most 100 Switch 2s that they're going to be handing out the day of release come June. So that puts it more into perspective for you. And even the people that buy it online, let's say you bought it through Amazon, of course, there's one warehouse, or there's probably a couple of warehouses to limit the possibility of the console being stolen. There's probably a couple of warehouses to where the console is probably sitting in the stock waiting to be shipped out to purchasers, or in fact the people who bought it online determines which stores or which warehouses are going to get a more than that initial 100 to fulfill those orders for the Nintendo Switch 2. It is not the case that each store right now has probably about 4,000 Nintendo Switches in stock or in the warehouse waiting to be pumped out. It's more so the case that because the initial batch has sold out, now we're probably going to be waiting until about winter of 2025 to see another batch of Nintendo Switches. And if America only got 4 million, or if around the world there's about 4 million, 3 to 4 million Nintendo Switches going out, then of course you must consider the possibility that, I mean, just because it's selling out online doesn't mean necessarily that everywhere is selling out. And there's also, of course, economic times, which will play a factor when time comes to pay that money, that a lot of people may drop their pre orders. A lot of people may have only made the move to pre order the Nintendo Switch 2 while they have the money. Maybe they had the money on hand at the time, but you always have to consider this. Economists already project that most Americans, and this is just in America alone, don't have the money on hand to deal with whether or not something goes wrong with their vehicle. Mind you, something as simple as an axle, which controls which is a component of the suspension for driving your vehicle, most people don't have the money for, if an axle went out, to purchase a new axle that's of quality to even be worth a damn to put on their vehicle, and then also to fucking go to a mechanic and have that part placed on the car. So something as simple as an axle going out on your vehicle, which is an easy fix, can break the bank for enough people to where they now have to cancel their pre-order of their Nintendo Switch 2 to get the money back to fucking change an axle on their vehicle to be able to go to work and live life, to supply themselves with the necessity of transportation. Um, this doesn't account for the idea that economic times are kind of lofty in a sense that we could go from, okay, I project that I could do okay enough to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 to next week. Oh damn, times are projected to get so bad that I may need to hold on to every dollar that I have. And then here's the big one. For all of the sales that's occurring, how many of these sales do you honestly believe are not just scalpers buying up the fucking console? Because I mean, do you think that scalpers just get a hold of? Do you think they just get a hold of these consoles by going place to place? No, bro. These motherfuckers understand enough about technology to where they're able to create bots and automatic VPN systems to where their IP address is essentially different, and then of course it's different from every time that they go through an order, and these bots can do these can make these purchases in a fraction of a second. In a fraction of a second. Why do you think specifically these fucking consoles or these consoles sell the fuck out? Why do you think it happens so fast? Bro, millions upon millions of people weren't sitting at home, weren't sitting on their phone waiting on 12 a.m. to come. Like, bro, there's probably about like 35% of America. No, there's probably about, well, yeah, 35% of Americans that were at work when the Switch 2 pre-orders went live. There's 35% of Americans that were at home but asleep when the Switch 2 pre-orders went live. And then there's a 33. Every time I say 35, switch it to 33. And then there's 33 Americans. And then there's 33 Americans who were up and probably worried about the Switch 2 pre-orders going live. Like, bro, I didn't even know. I keep up with this shit, and I didn't even know when the pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 would go live. And I remember when I bought my second Nintendo Switch from during COVID. I remember when I bought my second Nintendo Switch, I met up with a scalper to buy my Switch, and because I just wanted it, I was like, fuck it. I met up with a scalper to buy my Nintendo Switch, and when that motherfucker opened the trunk to his car, this nigga had like 20 Switches, 20 of them motherfuckers in his trunk, bro, and mine was just one of many. So, I mean, I think you guys don't. I think these people, not you guys, but these people don't understand that a console selling out, especially in its initial release at the most hype time for this console, like legit, this console won't be talked about this much 2 years from now. I think people don't understand that none of that shit matters. And as far as Nintendo are concerned, they take a loss on the hardware. They may make some money, probably about like $40 for each console sold. But you got to realize, bro, these consoles are not made in a vacuum. They're not made by specifically Nintendo themselves. It's a partnership with multiple companies to supply the motherboards, the GPUs, the CPUs, the RAM, the licensing to use these products and stuff like that. So they take a loss on every single one of these consoles. And here's the big but. If here's the big but. If scalpers have 40% of the Nintendo Switch 2s from the launch batch of the Switch 2, my nigga, that's potentially 40% of Switch 2s that don't have a real owner, meaning that the software, which is where they do get their money, the software isn't gonna fucking sell. At most, you may get people who may buy the software in preparation for when they get a Nintendo Switch 2. I'm one of the people who have done something like this before. In fact, what game was it? I think it was Breath of the Wild that I bought before I even had my very first Nintendo Switch back in 2017 because I couldn't find the console. But I did buy Breath of the Wild, and I held on to it until I had finally got a hold of a Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, a Nintendo Switch 2. Of a Nintendo Switch. So there you go. Like, and again, when people see the price of these fucking video games, they're not going to be willing to do stuff like buy the game in preparation for when you get the console, to ensure that you have the game when you get the console, even if you're looking for it vehemently after you purchase the game. You're not going to get people like that with $80 fucking games. So let me know what you guys think about this. This is being your boy Mazia, just coming through and giving some insight into the Nintendo Switch 2 selling as we go through this boycott period. Bro, don't let no fucking, let me put it this way, don't let no fucking media outlets convince you that you should just give in and go ahead and buy a Nintendo Switch 2. Bro, more people or most people are not fucking dumb enough to buy into this bullshit. Like, bro, we exist essentially in a vacuum. This internet boycott shit probably only makes up for about 25-30% of people who fucking play video games, bro. People have fucking lives. They're not sitting here looking at YouTube all day to be worried about the fucking prices of video games. Just think about it like this. Essentially, think about it like this. GTA 5, I think, has sold 50 million copies. Let's take the biggest examples. GTA 5 has sold somewhere around 50-60 million copies. Mario Kart has sold somewhere around 50 million copies. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold, or in total, has sold 50 million copies, right? If these games sell 50 million copies, what's the correlation, do you think, to their traction on the internet? It's not 50 million, bro. It's not 50 million. There has never been a time on Twitch to where 50 million people were watching the channel for GTA 5. Regardless of which streamer, there's never been a time where no game essentially has had more than, I think, like 1 million people watching it on Twitch at a time. And this is representative almost completely for the traction or the level of relevance these things have on YouTube as well. There's probably only about like 40% of gamers who give a fuck about what's going on the internet, or that spend time on the internet to discuss this shit. I know a bunch of gamers, and a lot of them don't give a fuck about the discussion of video games besides the little news tidbits that they get online. When they get on Facebook, when they get on Instagram, when they get on YouTube, when they get on Twitter. They only care when they see it in that moment. They're not keeping up with the discussion. They're not keeping up with the boycotts. They're not keeping up with everything that's going on in the gaming sphere like how we do. So, again, this is being boy Mazia. Don't forget to like the video and help me grow out my content in different ways. Again, like I said in the other video, I may not be the first to get around to these topics, but when I do, I'll give you a more niggified oh my god, that shit. A more niggified perspective on them. This being boy Mazia. Peace the heck out.